and see you around, cunts. I'm just kidding, but let's take a quick look at the 2019 review that I did at the beginning of this year because I was too lazy to do it at the end of 2019 the way I'm supposed to. 2020 already? I mean, aside from like the fucking major audio blunder, that's just frustrating as shit that I had today, it's shaping up to be a pretty good year. There's like a bunch of areas in my life where it's like, might go well, which I obviously, whenever that happens, you don't want to have hope, because hope is bad. Well, sorry about that. I love how optimistic I was on the 4th of January 2020, talking about how, but I really should be expecting the worst. Little did I know that the fucking audio blunder that I had, that I don't even remember what the problem was with that at this point, would be the least of my fucking concerns. Let me tell you, I did not anticipate how much of a catastrophic failure this year would be for me and pretty much every other person on the planet who isn't Jeff state-mandated Amazon deliveries Bezos. 2020 fucking sucked so fucking much that we're going to feel the aftershocks of the suckage throughout most of 2021, even if 2021 turns out to be great, which I am not holding my breath for. And that's not even accounting for the gargantuan economic crisis that neoliberal governments around the world will not properly handle, where just massive corporations and ultra-wealthy oligarchs with billions of dollars are just gonna line their pockets with stimulus money. Meanwhile, the average person will probably get a check that's just high enough to buy a gun and a single bullet to shoot themselves in the head with. Which effectively just makes it an extra government handout for the weapons manufacturing industry. Even the most optimistic people that I know, Bacchus bless them, go, actually 2020 sucked in spite of the many good little things that happened to me. Personally, and we're not really going to talk about my private life, just my professional YouTube life up in this bitch. I was stuck in like a rubber banding situation with my subscriber count ever since I basically hit 25k at the beginning of the year. It's funny, right? Because I surpassed that benchmark. I had great growth. And then suddenly the growth like slowed down on a curve and I was just pulled back. And when I was a safe distance away from 25k, that growth would pick back up rather quickly and I would shoot up to the exact point where I was almost there, and then once again a lot of subscribers would be purged. Let me tell you, it was rather common for me to receive messages on various channels through which people could reach me saying, oh, it's really weird, I got unsubscribed from your channel. Until at some point it just sort of stopped, the growth returned, and wouldn't you know it, I got almost like 500 subscribers in 3 months. But we all know YouTube doesn't fuck deliberately with people's sub counts. They have, after all, said they don't do that. But hey, that's not really the bad thing, really. If anything, 2020 has taught me that I can have a fantastic community of very engaged and interesting people without the community needing to be big. This is what I need to resort to, fucking optimism. The really terrible thing is that around this time, last year, I was paying taxes. And around this time this year, I don't make enough to pay my rent plus utilities anymore. And being in that position, I am still in a better place than a huge amount of other people. I kind of failed to predict that the world's #1 most trusted reserve currency attached to the most powerful single country economy in the world would plummet to levels of basically monopoly money compared to the euros I pay my rent in. Not even my summer job was able to cushion that blow, but at least I had a summer job. I was able to get a summer job. At least I am still able to make rent by digging into my savings because I had an opportunity to amass savings. At least I didn't lose my entire livelihood out of nowhere like a lot of good hardworking people did. I can see it on my Patreon exit surveys, which are anonymized, but like I can see the reasons why people quit my Patreon, and it's all fucking, I'm sorry dude, COVID destroyed my financial situation over and over again. Which, of course, we know this because we see the news and we're people whose income has probably been massively diminished by this. But I see a lot of individual fates where this is just happening to people. Also, just so you know, there's nothing to apologize for if you can't be my patron anymore. You do need to take care of your own financial security first. You do not owe me money. I am happy you at any point thought that I was worthy of your support at all. Now, this would be the point of the video where I would usually, go back and look at the year's memes that happened. But that would require me to actually reflect upon 2020 in this review of 2020. And I refuse to do that. Plus, we're at a point again where memes have become such a key component of our ironic personalities that we've all put on in the middle of this crisis in order to not have to show the world that we are suffering while we are showing the world that we are suffering, that you're not even allowed to talk about them anymore. I wouldn't want to be a fucking normie now, would I? So instead, I'm going to be skipping right to the part where I share with you some of the YouTubers that I discovered in the past 12 months that I have been enjoying tremendously, all in randomized order. I actually put this in like a randomizer type deal. And I jot these down throughout the year so I don't have to reflect upon 2020 to know what the list is. First up, Friendlyjordies.
Especially when it comes to property developer donors, which by the way is supposed to be illegal. Insert patented Friendlyjordies joke where Jordan goes, "You don't, do you, scum?" You don't, do you, scum? Like the video!
Jordan Shanks is a comedian in the sense that most of what he does is, at this point, investigative journalism, which makes him one of maybe 5 people in Australia who do that, the other 4 of which all work for underfunded regional newspapers. Look, I know I don't even live in the same hemisphere or near the same continent that Australia is, okay? And I don't even have the excuse of being like a barbarian tribesman born in the Germanic colonies that tries to keep abreast of the politics of Rome because it's relevant to his life. But I am German, and sort of the land down under has always called to me, even when I was a little kid with one of them maps that you have on your desk. I didn't even know what the fuck Australia was. I knew that there was kangaroos there, that was it. It was always the most interesting spot on the map. Main reason I enjoy Friendlyjordies is that he reminded me big time this year that you're still allowed to be a funny leftist. Last year, with a few notable exceptions, I was just caught so deep in the neoliberal haze of symbolic identity politics that I was just choking. I was dying on the inside because I thought these leftists, they have to know. They have to know that systemic change is really the most important change and that, obscenity creates a closeness of spirit among people to work together to actually achieve anything at all. Just the discovery that the left wasn't dead, the way that I had been led to believe by massive amounts of money. That was a big relief this year in the midst of, all this. And of course, the thing I like the most is his rejection of all these political labels, because it's all about facts, figures, and policy, and, cheap laughs at the expense of politicians. And hack journalists. Let's not forget the hack journalists. Going across the pond for a YouTuber, a historian that I really enjoyed this year, let me introduce you to Atun-Shei films. I'm not sure that's how you pronounce it. That's just how I am going to pronounce it.
Come on, buddy. Sober up. We've got a new episode to film. Unless, of course, you're ready to finally concede that it was really about slavery after all.
Never! It's so sad that Northerners still pretend the war was about slavery.
He does a variety of videos, all of which focus around some kind of working through the history of a certain topic, and they're all very insightful and chock full of information written in a way that is dense enough that you just never get bored. Especially his videos on the history and the ghost stories of New Orleans have been very useful to me for reasons that I cannot get into because that is a secret project. The thing of his I enjoyed the most this year though was his thing about Dracula, like a big video where he went into the lore about the lore, the history about the history of the fictitious history of Dracula and how that evolved through the years and the vampire myth in general. That was fantastic. Especially after having seen BBC's Dracula, which just made me fucking bleed out of my taste buds. Look, if you ever wanted to have like an American Lindy Beige, this is the guy. He has more of a historical than an archaeological focus, but it's the guy. Back to Europe, and only Europe, not the EU at this point in time, I've been very impressed with one Georg Rockall-Schmidt.
Without being able to cite any specific examples, I suspect that product placement has existed as long as what is now termed media or even content, because it's too embarrassing to call it art. In fact, let's just call it output. Output.
I hadn't just sat down to spontaneously binge watch a channel for maybe 1 or 2 years, instead of doing work. He talks mostly about film and television, though he sometimes veers into various other subject matters, always holding a distinctive, but also not too distinctive style that has an essential Britishness and also an essential identity for the channel. It's a very tight rope that he walks it very successfully. He do really know how to do film, which is, he is apparently a professional filmmaker, so he would be expected to. But it feels a bit elevated above just YouTube while still maintaining the essential just YouTube aesthetic. That's difficult. Plus, the lava lamp is cool. Lava lamps were never out of fashion. Lava lamps are cool. They always have been, and they forever will be, which is why I don't have one. Another British guy, and to give you an insight into the TheBurgerkrieg production methodology, on my list of YouTubers that I had this year, they were just jotted down as those two British guys, even though I assume they have nothing to do with each other except that they're both British guys, is one Ordinary Things.
San Francisco learned to forgive Uber for its blatant law breaking because it is the embodiment of Silicon Valley's favorite buzzword.
His videos are also about a variety of things, though usually the focus is a lot more on how everything is actually extremely shit once you peel back the very top layer of marketing. And he does not just peel back only the top layer of marketing, but also many of the ones below that. But in addition to, being informative, his videos are actually also rather funny, which is usually a big problem with the kind of content that tells you about how everything is actually terrible and things that you should really be aware of, because they tend to be delivered in the format of dry articles that you can read 20 times without knowing even a single thing that happened in there. And I like the fact that YouTube gives a lot of space, because inherently YouTube does have a lot of space to that kind of content that was once just, limited to the realm of satirists, where you get informed about such things. Though, to be fair, I mostly watch a lot of his videos for the entertainment value because I don't like eggs and I never have. And now for something completely different.
And another one right here. Nice dive bomb move for Starry, but can't make it stick. Almost got by Bumble on the exit there. Momo closes that one off. As they come up the belt, 1.3 seconds is the lead for Speedy, who exits cleanly.
Yes, I did start watching Jelle's Marble Runs this year. Yes, I did find that channel through John Oliver. Yes, you can make fun of me in the comments for it. It's such a nice thing where you can just take such a mundane, childish, really, hobby and engage with it in such a fantastic manner because it has so much production value behind it, and just pretend like it is shit that actually matters, as opposed to having to be concerned about all this out there. Just for 10 minutes sometimes, it takes me back to a time where I could actually enjoy things unironically. Unironic things I could enjoy unironically. That was a better time. And before you ask, the team that I support are the Oceanics. I know they lose all the time, I know they suck, but it's not like I can do anything about which team I like the most. There's just a team I like the most, and that's that one. Someone I couldn't help but become a fan of this year is Quinn Curio.
I think it flies under the radar how often Ron's characterization has to bend to give hairy, cool moments, impactful moments, or just softening up the text a little bit to make our protagonists less flawed.
Look, I don't care about Riverdale. I stopped watching The Umbrella Academy sort of halfway through because it just failed to capture me long term. I actively dislike Gotham, and I didn't even attempt to see 365 Days, though I had heard very bad things about it from friends. Yet, somehow, for some reason, I found myself watching all of Quinn Curio's, rather short list of videos that she has. Unfortunately, I wish there were more of them, in addition to just having seen the Harry Potter ones, which actually do interest me, because I was just born in a certain time at a certain place. And these are not just like 10-minute analysis flashes, they bounce between 30 minutes and an hour, if not more. That's not usually a time investment I afford videos. And the thing is, I have no idea why I can watch this video essayist more than all the other video essays, because I do watch them, I do think they're good, but this one I just enjoy more than anyone else, and I couldn't tell you why this is. I genuinely do not know if it's the style, the delivery, the voice. It probably isn't the subject matter, but maybe it is the way of analyzing it. You're just gonna have to live with that and check out that channel, and then maybe you tell me what I think is good about it. Someone who does much shorter content in comparison is Sisyphus55.
This led to an interesting hypothesis. Tibetan art was the result of the use of hallucinogenic plants by the shamans. This would aid in the promotion of the awesomely titled psychedelic neo-shamanism movement. Notably, in a 2011 UK census, 650 individuals self-identified as shamans.
I mentioned him in my Zizek video that I did just this month, I'm pretty sure. So you probably, a lot of you will have heard of him already through that, and also because, he's a significantly bigger YouTuber than I am. But there was a long time where I was just looking for someone who would break down the, philosophies of individual philosophers. Because I find myself in the rather rare situation where my dyscalculia makes it rather difficult for me to internalize and remember discrete pieces of specific information. Look, I don't know who said what, I just know what has been said. Unless someone takes the time to explain it to me, preferably with visual aids. Still not perfect, and also kind of pulls into question why I spend so much of my free time reading Wikipedia, but here we are. So thank you, Sisyphus55, for helping me connect the right words to the right concepts and making me look smarter than I actually am. Next up, a podcast. Not even one YouTuber.
Let's say I somehow reproduce and my kid gets cancer. Is that an excuse to be an iPad parent?
That's an iPad parent. You're not gonna spend time with your dying child. You're just gonna hand them an iPad.
What's the point in investing emotionally at that point?
Yeah.
Wow. If you ever have kids with cancer, I'm gonna send them this clip. Hey, remember you said this?
Yes, I actually myself was on the Perpetually Uneducated podcast. I really enjoyed it, and I'm not saying that Cody stole my idea for a podcast where you go through Wikipedia articles, but I did have that idea years ago and kept it to myself. Follow your dreams, kids, otherwise this will happen to you. I'm just kidding, ideas are cheap. Look, I don't consume a lot of podcasts, I don't really have the time for it, but I do occasionally try to make time for this one because I like the concept, I like the praxis, and I like that they're not pretentious about, doing something that is ostensibly smart. They still admit that they're not smart while being smart, which is the ultimate sign of smart. Although, to be fair, just looking at the Justin Trudeau Wikipedia article to skip right to the section about him doing blackface is not exactly what the high intelligentsia in their ivory towers would do, or so I am told. And I know this is essentially cheating, right? But this.
Ja, hallo, herzlich willkommen zur allerersten Folge vom Grossdeutschen Podcast. Ich bin Gideon.
Ich bin Philipp.
Ich bin Michael.
Und wir sind keine Faschos, versprochen.
Yes, this is a podcast that I started like a month ago, barely even. And it's in German. It's about just, being a person that exists in the German-speaking world. Please go away, Texas. You do not count. Although, really, in practice, what we do mostly is complain about, global neoliberalism and be disappointed at how Austrians are so wrong about everything that they do. But technically, this is a channel I discovered this year, so I'm putting it on the list. Fuck you, I can do what I want. This is my YouTube channel. Going back to Australia for a second, there's Suibhne, which is something that I have to remember differently in my head to the way that it's actually written, which is very different from that, because when I read it, my brain just refuses to form the word Suibhne.
Driven by tales of golden cities and swathes of people to convert to Christianity, early colonizers of Central America were conquerors, so-called conquistadors, such as the famous Hernan Cortez. Cleverly allying himself with various cities that the Aztecs had conquered, Cortez destroyed Tenochtitlan, and upon its ruins would build a new city, Mexico, meaning place of the Mexicas.
Suibhne is, at least in my personal context, essentially the Sisyphus 55 of doing history. He does these packaged, discrete histories of individual countries, which I know is rather a standard format, but he does it just exceptionally well. I mean, let's not even talk about the tremendous animations that you have in all of those videos that function extremely well as visual teaching aids while still having a distinctive style and aesthetic that doesn't go too far out of the ordinary, but also doesn't just do the same thing everybody else does. He actually does his research. Unfortunately, due to the just enormous production value that every single one of his videos has, he is essentially on JonTron's publishing schedule, but it is always worth it. Plus, the guy himself is also really cool. That's how I found his channel. I met him on Hello Future Me's 24-hour charity live stream that I was on, and I found his channel through that, and he's a great dude, and his channel is great. So shout out to you. And finally, last but very not least, we have DissociaDID.
Our channel is dedicated to mental health and specifically DID, dissociative identity disorder. This video is going to tell you specifically how to organize your life with DID, how to work with alters in order to keep your life on track.
Now, DissociaDID is a channel run by a system of alters that all inhabit the same body, host, with dissociative identity disorder. See, I don't really have the terminology down, but they do. Now, I've done videos about mental health on this channel before. It's no secret that I have a variety of mental health issues. Most recently, I did a video on schizophrenia, which, all of those, to be fair, thanks to, therapy and access to medication when I need it and a good social support system, they don't actually diminish my quality of life all that much anymore. And I really appreciate all channels that dedicate themselves to that in part and fully, because they help a lot introducing people to the idea that, people who do have mental issues and not like raving lunatics that you would put in a 1950s insane asylum. They're just, people. Like, some people have asthma, and that's not their defining character trait unless, they're the tattling kid on a show about middle school. Yes, my Tourette syndrome does sometimes make me do some spastic motions, but did you know I also enjoy cooking? Just kidding, I prefer eating. I did a video this year actually where I explore the question as to whether alters in a DID system should be given the franchise, so they should be allowed to vote as distinct persons in an election. I don't make a definitive statement about it, but I do explore some of the implications of that because, as you could probably imagine, it's rather complicated. And watching the channel DissociaDID did help me a lot with the research that I did for that video. And I highly recommend it for anyone who enjoys the kind of mental health content that I occasionally do, except it happens more often. So those are the channels that I discovered this year. They're not, new channels in the sense that they're founded this year or last year, although some of them are, but they are just, my own perception of the world. They came into my life at this point and not earlier. They were one of the few good parts of 2020, so I am very grateful for them. However, in summation, for the 2020 year review, I rate 2020 2.5 Reddit moments out of 7. 0 burger feet pics out of 5, and 10 out of 10 pineapple on pizzas. Thank you all very much for sticking with me this year. I really appreciated that. I enjoy doing this. It's such a great life. I realized at some points during this year, the way that I realized more often last year, is that I'm doing a thing that a lot of people want to do. And somehow, for some reason, it worked for me, even though a lot of those people do, like, a lot better content. Yes, I'm talking about my man Doplex. And I do hope that maybe 2021 gets better for maybe some of us, although I'm not actually getting my hopes up. God, in case you're fucking listening. Because Patreon does a rather shit job at, like, keeping me updated as to who is and who isn't a patron anymore and who changed their pledges. I did, like, an end of the year accounting, so if you are one of the maybe none people who do watch the entire Patreon slide at the end of my videos, you might find it rather a bit different this time around. In any case, I wish you a happy 2021. I wish I didn't say that, now I have jinxed it, and see you around, cunts!